During World War II, comic readers couldn't get enough of their Golden Age heroes. But after the war, things started to cool down for the superheroes. Fans wanted different kinds of stories. Some wanted Western cowboy comics, some wanted humor and science fiction, and even romance comics. But today, we'll focus on the idea that comic readers were searching for man's best friend. This is when comics had gone to the dogs.
How much is that dog in the window? The one with the waggly tail.
Green Lantern's book was one such superhero title that soon went to the dogs, literally. In October 1948, the Green Lantern was not shown on the cover of his own title. Instead was the Green Lantern's dog, Streak, the Wonder Dog. This is issue number 34. By issue 35, the Green Lantern was back on the cover, but the issue after that saw the return of Streak the Wonder Dog, getting the whole cover to himself yet again. This pattern of every other cover continued up until issue 38, which was the last Green Lantern comic of the Golden Age.
Excuse me, Graphic Man. Could you show issues 34 and 36 side by side again, please?
What? Oh, well, sure, yeah. Here we go. Is there something wrong?
Well, I'm not quite sure. There's something going on here, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh well, never mind.
This wouldn't be the last we see of Streak the Wonder Dog, as he next appears in Sensation Comics number 93, where he's up to his usual tricks of saving the day and getting medals and commendations from various government officials. Streak isn't used much more after that, but he wasn't the only dog to be called a Wonder Dog. In February of 1952, DC Comics replaces Streak with The Adventures of Rex, the Wonder Dog. Rex would be heroically putting himself in danger to save some innocent bystander about to be eaten or attacked by a wild animal. Rex was so popular that he lasted a solid 46 issues of rugged adventure. Not surprisingly, DC Comics came up with yet a third dog to have the title of Wonder Dog. In 1973, a cartoon and a comic book was produced called The Super Friends. Superman had a dog and Batman had a dog, and for that matter, they could have even used Green Lantern's dog, but no, they came up with a completely different dog. His name was, well, they didn't give him a name. Instead, he was merely called Wonder Dog. Bringing in this canine might have made some sense if they had told us that he belonged to Wonder Woman, but obviously no one cared. Let's get back to Rex. DC Comics had become the dominant publisher of dog comics. From time to time, Our Fighting Forces featured a dog that helped out in one of the DC War titles, and his name is Pooch. I guess that's better than Wonder Dog, but he wasn't the most famous. That was Krypto. Krypto was first seen in Adventure Comics number 210, March of 1955. Krypto comes to Earth and interrupts a robbery. Clark Kent sees bullets bounce off of the super dog. Clark Kent then changes to Superboy and follows the dog back to the small rocket that brought Krypto to Earth. Clark finds written information that conveniently fills him in on the dog's identity and history, and Clark discovers that this dog is actually his family dog from back on Krypton. After some trouble, Krypto runs off for outer space, leaving Superboy to hope that Krypto will one day return. And 4 months later, he did return. He returned in Adventure Comics number 214, and he would be utilized in many ways, and even his name was beneficial. Instead of merely calling him Superdog, by naming him Krypto, it was a constant reminder that both Superboy and his dog were from another planet, and both would suffer from exposure to kryptonite. In Superboy number 101, Krypto gets exposed to red kryptonite dust, which changes him into a collie. Apparently, the kryptonite can be influenced by whatever you are thinking about, and here Krypto was thinking about how good collies look. I suppose it's a good thing Krypto wasn't thinking about food, or he could have fallen to Earth as some tasty treat, and potentially have been eaten by any number of animals. The second most well-known superhero dog was Underdog. Fans will notice that the Underdog's costume is the exact opposite of Superman. Where Superman's costume is blue, Underdog's is red. Where Superman's cape is red, Underdog's cape is blue. For non-superpowered comic book dogs, Scamp was a huge success for Dell Comics. Scamp was first seen in 1955 from the Lady and Tramp series. Although the other dogs in the series were well liked, none of them could compete with Scamp. Scamp not only had fun adventures and the benefit of an already well-established cast of characters to interact with, he was also drawn by the great Al Hubbard, whose cartoon style style of dogs was fantastic. Of course, if you didn't want the funny animal style, and if Hong Kong Phooey isn't your cup of tea, there was also the serious non-superpowered dog comics, most notably Lassie and Rin Tin Tin. Lassie comics produced by Dell would have beautiful painted covers, while Rin Tin Tin would usually have photograph covers. But what if you could have an ordinary dog adventurer team up with the most famous non-superpowered superhero? Since Krypto was doing well with Superboy, the editors of Batman thought it was time for them to get a dog as well, so in steps Ace the Bat-Hound. His first appearance was in Batman 92, and unlike Krypto, his first appearance was drawn very heroic and action-packed. Ace had been attacked by crooks, and in a wounded condition was trying to cross a river when Robin the Boy Wonder spots him in the water. They rescue the dog and make plans to locate the dog's owner. Ace recovers pretty quickly, and Bruce Wayne puts an ad in the newspaper. But once Batman decides to leave the Batcave, Ace the Bat-Hound wants to go for a ride as well. Since they're in a hurry, they allow Ace to get in the Batmobile, but Batman realizes that if anyone recognizes the dog from the newspaper photo, then Batman's secret identity will be in jeopardy. So while Batman talks to the police, Robin fixes a mask for Ace, and the Bat-Hound is born. After Ace captures the crooks and rescues his owner named John Wilker, Batman explains that Bruce Wayne found his dog and loaned the dog to him for helping solve this crime, and the dynamic duo leaves Ace with the rightful owner. And now DC Comics will sit back and see if the comic readers want to see more of Ace. And they do. And when they bring back Ace, they give us one of the most stupidest covers ever. They show the dog figuring out that Bruce Wayne is really Batman. But of course, Ace knew that all the time. Dogs know us by our scent. Unless DC Comics wanted us to think that Batman has a completely different scent than Bruce Wayne, but this cover was basically a red herring. As this kind of plot didn't really manifest, instead we were treated to another good dog story. First, we needed a reason to bring back the Bat-Hound. That comes when some crooks make use of a trained dog to help them steal some diamonds. Obviously, Batman will need a dog because the crooks have forced a dog trainer to help them. He couldn't ask to borrow Superman's dog or the Green Lantern's dog.
Oh, Graphic Man, that's silly. Why bother those heroes when instead the writer of this story can simply have Batman drive out to John Wilker's house and regale the forgetful Robin about what happened a few days ago? I quote, "Remember how as Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson we found him, stunned and drowning, and learned that his owner, John Wilker, was missing."
Yes, that writing was spectacular, and even though it must have been very awkward to hear a knock at the door and find Batman standing on your porch asking to borrow your dog, John Wilker agrees, and soon Ace the Bat-Hound is back in action. And when the case is solved, Batman returns Ace back to John Wilker, but teases us with the idea that Ace might return to action soon. In Batman 103, Ace the Bat-Hound returns, and by now the editors were starting to realize how much of a nuisance it is to keep coming up with excuses to go and visit the owner of Ace. So they slowly start to write him out of the story. The excuse they give is that John Wilker went to Europe and left Ace with Bruce Wayne. Bruce still refers to Ace as John Wilker's dog, so the adoption isn't final yet.
Young readers of this book might think that traveling all over Europe with a dog might be too expensive. But there might have been an even more serious problem. If John Wilker traveled to Iceland, he would have had to deal with the no dogs allowed rule in the capital city of Iceland. The official ban on dogs in Reykjavik, Iceland was issued in 1924. The ban was lifted in April of 1984, and the residents of Reykjavik could now keep dogs as pets again. Since our story takes place during that 60-year time period, we can't rule that out as yet another obstacle of going through Europe with a dog.
In Batman 125, the owner makes it official and asks Bruce to take over permanently, as he still has to travel all over Europe. This makes Ace happy as he enjoys being a superhero dog. Ace and Krypto join forces with Scooby-Doo in Scooby-Doo Team-Up number 18. This book would feature numerous dog heroes all joining up as a team. And speaking of Scooby-Doo, his own title was launched with Gold Key back in 1970.
Oh, who cares about Scooby-Doo? Let's get to the greatest publisher of them all, Classics Illustrated.
We're in the middle of comic book dogs. I promise you, we will get around to Classics Illustrated in a few weeks, but right now
The year was 1958. and the greatest comic publisher of all time released a new title called The World Around Us. And for their first issue...
Sorry, we're out of time.
What are you...